and welcome to my channel. My name is Brianne Beebe and I'm a high school math teacher and I'm finishing up my 6th year of teaching. One of the best things about teaching is that every single day and every single year is different from one to the next. That provides us with endless opportunity for growth. I feel like a lot of jobs, it's the same thing every single day and it's hard to improve, and I love to improve and just feel like I'm making progress in some way. So as the school year's been winding down, I've been reflecting on this past year and I have 3 lessons that I feel like I learned and kind of just wanted to share. I'm just gonna run through the list real quick and then go back and elaborate on them, just so that if this is something you're not interested in, you're not wasting your time watching a whole video. So the first lesson that I'd say I learned is how to actually put myself first. The second is that classroom management has to evolve. And the third is how to handle teacher advice. So I learned the hard way 2 years ago that as a teacher, you really have to put yourself first at some point. It's what we do. We put everybody else ahead of ourselves because we want to help them and take care of them, and it's in our nature. And that's nice and all, but you need to take care of yourself first. And there's a saying that I just absolutely love. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you're running on empty, you have nothing left to give to anybody else. So I knew this because I learned this before, but I did not practice what I preached. So this year, for the first time, I really had to put myself first, because to put myself first is to put my baby first. I know I've talked about this in pregnancy vlogs or maybe in my classroom vlogs, but my priority has always been family first. The thing is though, my family, everyone is old enough to take care of themselves, so I haven't had to actually enact putting my family first until this year. So there were a lot of days that I was complaining that, I got home from work and sat on the couch and did nothing else for the rest of the day, but just rested and relaxed. And at the time I was frustrated by that because I like to be productive all the time. And if I'm not doing something or accomplishing something, I feel like I'm wasting my time. Which means I need to learn to relax, which I did a little bit this year. So I would practice self-care and take a bath and give myself a pedicure and do little pampering things like that when I felt like I really needed it. But this year I kind of learned how to just get home and take a break. I feel like that's something that I'm going to need to continue into the next school year, because when I'm home with my baby, I want to be with my baby after being at work all day. So I've learned that that time that I was sitting on the couch while I felt like I was wasting time because I wasn't accomplishing anything, I was investing in myself and in my energy reserve. So I feel like I need to kind of continue that when I need to, and maybe even just build in time for that each day, which now won't be sitting there on the couch watching TV. It's going to be sitting there on the couch cuddling with the baby. The second lesson was about classroom management. I feel like the big disclaimer that every teacher on YouTube needs to make is that we don't always discuss everything. There's certain things like I stop if I feel like I'm going to be speaking to something that could lead to a student being identified from the videos that I'm putting out. My students found out that I have a YouTube channel, so I don't like to talk about specific situations because I feel like if I said, today this student did this crazy thing, students are going to be able to watch it and identify and know who I'm talking about, and then it'll be like, Miss Beebe was talking about you on her YouTube channel. So I like to keep things very broad and generic for that reason. So just remember that the teachers you're seeing on YouTube don't share everything, and we by no means have everything together. And just speaking for myself, I like to share advice and things that I've learned to help other teachers, but that does not mean I have all the solutions or that my classroom runs perfectly every single day. So going back to what I said I love about teaching, how we're always changing and growing and evolving, that doesn't apply to just teaching or just specific things. It also includes classroom management, which I learned this year. So one thing that I always loved that my college professors would say is, you're not a cookie, you're a person. It's not like you come out of college and you're done and you're perfect. You have to keep working at it. This year I learned that I had to keep working at classroom management. I felt like last year I finally got it. Like I had it under control. I knew what I was doing. I knew what changes I needed to tweak for this year. And then I had a curveball thrown at me. For whatever reason, I had a large number of male students in all of my classes, but it really affected my geometry classes. Now, I have no problem with boys. Boys are great. I'm having a boy. Clearly, no problem there. Because I don't mean to sound sexist. But the group of boys that I had this year were on the immature side of the spectrum. So it just made things difficult when they shouldn't have been. And I had to kind of go back and retool how I was going to manage my classroom. And going back to how YouTube teachers do not have all the answers, I got one of my geometry classes to run very smoothly and things were great throughout the rest of the year. And there's just a couple small things that were annoying or that I would like to change, but it got to the point where it's the end of the year. I don't really know what else I could do differently. My other geometry class, on the other hand, I never found a solution for. I worked really hard to build relationships with those students that were struggling behavior-wise in my classroom, but nothing ever really worked that I tried. So I don't know, I have to keep working at it. So the last thing that I would say I learned about this year is teacher advice online. This one is kind of like a two-parter. So a little bit of background. For me, I'm the only geometry teacher in my entire school district. So I don't have a colleague that I can ask for advice or bounce ideas off of as far as content goes. So this can be very frustrating, but what I do have is a professional learning network of educators online. And if you're on Instagram or being here on YouTube, you're creating your own professional learning network, or sometimes people call them professional learning communities. There's one on Twitter just for math teachers, and it's fantastic. And it's kindergarten through high school math. And I've gone there to ask for advice tons and tons of times. So what I've learned is that whatever advice you're getting from other teachers, you have to take with a grain of salt. While we're all educators and we have lots of things in common, and while we might be attacking some common teacher problems, we're all different people teaching in very different environments with very different students. So sometimes the advice that you get from other teachers doesn't really apply to you or your school situation or your students. So I definitely have two separate things to say on this issue. The first is take in the advice, listen, consider it, and then do what's best for you and your students. My prime example of this from this past year is the math teachers in my school have been toying with the idea of switching Algebra 2 and geometry in terms of sequencing. So we were interested in going from Algebra to Algebra 2 to geometry, which we are going to try next year. So when my district was considering this and we were kind of talking it out and thinking about the problems that it would solve and possible problems that it could cause, I went to Twitter and I asked my math teacher friends what they thought, or if they had any advice, or if anyone had tried it. I think all of the responses I got, except for maybe one, were against switching it. That they tried switching it in their school and it may have solved some problems in the short term, but in the long term it didn't help. And the biggest issue that I saw recurring from other teachers was that students were going from geometry to pre-calc at that point, and they haven't had that good solid algebra in a full year, so they were rusty when they got to pre-calc. After hearing that, I was discouraged and I kind of put the idea out of my mind, but luckily other teachers in my math department didn't. Because what we realized when I brought this up to them is that the students that are going on to pre-calc are our stronger students anyway. And our pre-calc teacher is confident that had they gone from Algebra 2 to geometry to pre-calc, that they might need a refresher when they get to pre-calc, but she doesn't think that it would be a huge detriment, that it would cause any issues. So next year we are trying that, and I get to teach Algebra 2 for the first time to 10th graders. My other thing that I learned about teacher advice online, I'm having such a hard time articulating. Let me just start with an example. I'm in the 40-hour teacher workweek club. I'm considered a graduate, and we have a Facebook group where we ask questions out to other secondary educators, and we can receive advice from them and get ideas about what they do in their classrooms to help us out. So just last week, a teacher posted a question and said, you know, how can I handle my prep when I have a class that comes in during that prep? Basically, they have to leave their room and they're having a rough time handling everything. So I wrote back and said, what I do is I have my bag and I pack it with all the things that I need and plan on doing during that prep period. And once I'm able to leave the room, I take that bag with me and I have everything that I need. And then I work on my stuff. Then the teacher wrote back saying, well, I tried that and it doesn't work because I have 3 preps and, you know, I can't have everything with me. So I was frustrated with this response because, like, what? That doesn't make sense. It's like you asked for advice and someone's legitimately trying to help you, but you're just shooting them down without really giving it too much consideration. Maybe it would have been more constructive to ask what specifically I do during my preps or how I do that or whatever. But then I had to write back and say, okay, I also teach 3 different preps and I don't do everything in one prep period. I plan out what I'm doing. Part of the 40-hour teacher workweek club involves making up a to-do list. So I'll have 1, 2, maybe 3 different tasks to do during that prep period. You can't do everything. Like, that's crazy. I mean, maybe they have longer preps, I don't know, but that's the thing, is I'm not in this teacher's position with the students that they have in the school that they have, so I don't know. But that's the thing, if you are asking for advice, you're casting a wide net, you're gonna get all kinds of responses. Some are going to be helpful to you, some are not. What I've learned is to try to consider things and ask follow-up questions, but not to dismiss somebody because you don't see how that's a solution for you immediately. Because I will freely admit this, I have done that in the past, that I've asked a question and someone wrote back with something and I'm like, well, it's nice that you can do that, but I can't do that in my school. Well, they have no way of knowing that because I didn't specify anything. So me making that comment is just unnecessary. Even after going through that example, I don't know how to succinctly sum that up, but whether you're giving advice or getting advice, don't take anything personally because we are all in different boats. Which actually makes the advice quite interesting because maybe something doesn't work out for us now. It could in the future, you never know. So overall, I will say that this has been a good year. I really enjoyed my students. I love them so much. I miss them already. And I feel like these lessons that I've learned and these insights will make me a better, stronger teacher for next year, which I'm starting to look forward to, but you know, I need to get my summer relaxation in first. So that's everything for this video. If you feel like you learned something that is going to change your teacher life for next year, please comment below so other people can learn from your lessons as well. And as always, thanks for watching.